Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about specifically Phandelver and below the Shattered Obelisk, the latest of the Dungeons and Dragons D&D canon hardbacks, and I want to have a spoiler-filled discussion of Chapter 6. So the player characters are now urgently searching for pieces of the Shattered Obelisk. And in Chapter 6, we get to deal with three specific pieces, and I called them shards, but that's not quite right. They're saying these are pieces of the Shattered Obelisk. And the player characters are searching for these in order to deny them to the mind flayers who are trying to put into effect this terrible plot, okay? So what we find is there are three pieces of the Shattered Obelisk that the player characters are urgently pursuing in Chapter 6. They exist at Talhundareth, okay? The crypt of Talhund, and Gibbets Crossing. Three distinct locations, each that have one of these Shattered Obelisk pieces. And each of the Shattered Obelisk pieces are magical and do different effects on whoever gets near them, right? And the player characters are now the dungeon performers are now hurtling toward getting these pieces so that they can deny them to the mind flayers, right? When they come to Gibbets Crossing, they come across, at this point they've been dealing with mind flayer fanatics, but they come across a mind flayer mastermind, a person who is actually orchestrating the gathering of the specific pieces of the Shattered Obelisk, and they come across mind flayer mastermind Qunbraxel, Qun Braxel, right? And so the player characters are continuing down this journey, and at this point, this adventure is delivering what it worried. It's delivering what it promised, right? There's a lot of body horror. People are getting, they're losing mental health. Their minds are being penetrated by beings from the far realm. We also learn about these mind flayers, that they are from the far realm, right? And this is this alien realm that these mind flayers live on. And it is not the Fae, right? It is distinct. It is this far realm. And honestly, I kind of think, my take is that the far realm is quite literally a non-named Lovecraftian universe, right? That you are connecting to the Lovecraftian universe. But they can't say that because that universe, actually, you know what? I guess they could say that because that universe literally is public domain. But then that would get into a weird space because, actually, very, very fascinating. Dungeons and Dragons has a win too much problem, right? So Magic the Gathering talks about this a lot. So you and I use Magic the Gathering for clear. We use it for characters, locations, entities, artifacts, and relationships, right? We use the cards. We don't really play Magic the Gathering as a game. There's some people who play Magic the Gathering as a card game. It still functions as that. It's not printed for that, in my humble opinion. Magic the Gathering's main source is to provide characters, locations, entities, artifacts, and relationships to be used in Dungeons and Dragons. Magic the Gathering is canon to Dungeons and Dragons. Dungeons and Dragons is canon to Magic the Gathering, right? And so it is really fat. And so basically you have this situation with chaos where, and in Magic the Gathering, when they play Magic the Gathering, they'll talk about winning too much, right? So you need to get your opponent to 20, right? You need to take 20 points of their life to win. And you could do this with a lot of different decks, but people will build decks that will win by putting the opponent 50, 75, 100 points in the negative, right? People are like, you can do this, but it's over engineering. It's not really needed, right? And that's another thing. Like, I don't think there's anything that's stopping, the Dungeons and Dragons from saying, oh yeah, the Mind Flayers this is totally Cthulhian, right? Like, this is the Cthulhian world. This is D&D connecting Cthulhian world. So why wouldn't they do this? Well, Chaosium, there's still some people who, like, I don't know if they actually like pay actual people to go to work and drink coffee in the morning and like, you know, show up at 9 a.m. and leave at 5, you know, and, you know, to work an actual 8-hour day and drink coffee in the middle and get benefits. I don't know if anybody in the world except Wizards of the Coast is really doing that anymore. Maybe Modifius, right? Because legit, I don't really. I think the TTRPG industry is a myth. I think we have a TTRPG activity sphere, and then we have Dungeons and Dragons. Like it's just the way it is. But I think the reason why Dungeons and Dragons doesn't just say, "Hey, this is Cthulhian," is just to give Chaosium a place to play where they're not in direct competition with Dungeons and Dragons. I think it's literally an act of mercy, right? Because Dungeons and Dragons can beat anybody they want in the TTRPG activity sphere, right? And they can beat them bad. But there's a point where you look like a bully, right? And I think that's what's happening. So I actually think the Mind Flayers are very Cthulhian, and that the Far Realm is really exactly where you would find Shoggoths, right? Like, and that's where they're coming from, right? And very, very fascinating. Chapter 6, absolutely fantastic. Thank you for letting me explore Phandelver and Below and the Shattered Obelisk with you. We're coming close to Chapter 8, which is the wrap, and but it's really been a blast just kind of having a spoiler discussion with you guys about Phandelver and Below, the Shattered Obelisk. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this book. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider like, subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.